17 years ago, I met the Whippet up close for the very first time, and let me tell you, I had no idea this one little dog would completely change my life. Today, I want to share some of the most important lessons I've learned after almost 2 decades with this breed. But before we get into that, let me take you back to where it all started. I used to see whippets at dog shows occasionally and on pictures, and honestly, my first and only thought was, what an ugly dog. I couldn't understand why would anyone want to own such a skinny, shivering and stressed looking creature.
Brother, ugh.
At the time, we owned a golden retriever and a Newfoundland. To us, a real dog was big and fluffy. However, crazy things happen when you least expect. Around this time, 17 years ago, we were invited at a friend's who owned Alaskan Malamutes and a Whippet. We sat in the garden and suddenly this small, brindle and white, gentle thing came out of nowhere. And with the lightest steps and her regal presence came to sit beside us like she always belonged there, requesting attention just by existing. She was nothing like the dogs we were used to. She smelled like nothing and her energy was out of this world. She was simply magic. It's a feeling hard to explain if you've never lived with a sighthound. And at that moment, something shifted in my heart. I strongly believe my obsession with animals is genetic because on our way back, my mom made a joke. How about we get a Whippet? They don't take much space and she can be like a gym trainer for our big dogs. Little did we know it was not a joke at all. I went down the rabbit hole and started searching for ethical Whippet breeders in Europe, and shortly after we found our match. That's how in the fall of 2008 we got the one and only Daira. In 2010, we got Lacey because how would we live if something happened to Daira? Plus, Whippets love the company of other Whippets. Just a bunch of excuses to mask our addiction because, you can't just have one Whippet. A few of the keepers from the litters we bred and our pack grew to 5 and then to 8. Fast forward to 2023 when we got our latest edition, Eris. I can't forget to mention the numerous Whippets I worked with in the Netherlands and the puppies I raised there. Some of them were truly like hard dogs to me. I dove into Whippets with very little knowledge and learned something new every year that passed. So after 17 years, what has life with them taught me? Here is the first lesson I learned. Whippets are never quite what they seem. Yes, Whippets are sensitive, but they're also tough, hilarious, full of personality and drama. One of the most common misconceptions is that they're timid, something I too used to believe back in the day. First, because I didn't meet the right breed representatives, and second, due to being misinformed. Even though they are emotional and rather sensitive and are prone to anxiety, they're not supposed to be fearful. In fact, with the right approach, they can become bomb-proof and very outgoing. To me, there is nothing more wonderful than a well-bred Whippet whose favorite activity is to be a part of new adventures and who is willing to explore the world. But how easy it is to turn them into fearless social butterflies is dictated by the foundation they receive since birth, or even before that if we consider genetics. Lesson number 2 I learned the hard way is nothing prepares you for how sticky these Velcro dogs are. While there are other breeds famous for being Velcro, Whippets are next level. If they could crawl under your skin and stay there forever, they wouldn't even think twice. They take the job of a professional shadow very seriously, and you will forget what being alone feels like. They don't just follow you everywhere, but they demand actions from you while following you. From explanations about what you're doing to demands of blankets, cuddles, and affection. Although this might sound heartwarming and funny, it comes with a very underestimated challenge. Separation anxiety, something they're extremely prone to and is overlooked by new owners just because Whippets seem easy indoors. If you want a Whippet, you need a solid plan on preventing and tackling it. They need to live in a household where their people are home most of the time. Sometimes even this is not enough. You will be surprised what can trigger separation anxiety later in their lifetime, such as life changes, moving properties, or a family member leaving the home. As if planning your life around them doesn't seem difficult enough, their sensitivity shows up in other parts of their personality as well, including how much they pick up on your emotions and how the energy within a home affects them. Watch what happens if you are frustrated, sad, or if there is an argument within the family. Whippets know and feel all of it and soak it up like a sponge. Since they are emotionally delicate, the way you train them, the way you speak to them, it all matters. Use harsh corrections or raise your voice every time you try to prove a point or show them who's boss, and they will shut down completely or constantly disregard you. What they do respond to is consistency, encouragement, and positive reinforcement. This and a lot of patience goes so much further with this breed than any type of force. Some whippet owners learn this the easy way, others the hard way, and some never learn, and they end up with a shell of a dog, so withdrawn and shy. That brings me to another lesson I wish more people understood. You need to filter who you take advice from. When you own a whippet, suddenly everyone has an opinion. Other dog owners, trainers, strangers in the park, keyboard warriors. But the truth is, not all dog advice applies to whippets. What works for a terrier could actually harm a whippet. Almost every single time we take our whippets anywhere, I meet a know-it-all individual.
Those are greyhounds, right? They need to run a lot, and you have to let them off leash. Right now.
And just as my big mouth is about to open and go, nice to meet you, sir. These are whippets, actually. And by the way, I'm Addie, and I've had whippets for 17 years. I've been owned by 10 of them, and I've worked with more than I can count. You might want to subscribe to my channel to learn more about them and stop throwing dumb, unwanted advice left and right. I take a deep breath and say, these are actually whippets, and they are allowed to run free every single day, but we're just on a short walk now. Have a lovely day. Some battles are just not worth it, and of course if I see willingness to learn in the person in front of me, then I do my best to educate. Furthermore, not all whippet advice is good advice either. I've heard some of the most stupid and dangerous recommendations by unethical sources who unfortunately own whippets. Bad advice, even well-meant, can do more harm than good. And never limit yourself to a single source of information. The same goes for where you get your whippet. It matters more than most realize. Whippets aren't a one-size-fits-all breed you can just pick up anywhere. A well-bred whippet raised by an ethical, responsible breeder will usually have the right temperament, sound health and genetics, and a great start in life. But when they come from the wrong place, a backyard breeder or a puppy mill, you're much more likely to see problems like anxiety, reactivity, health issues, or unstable temperament. Who you get your puppy from shapes the next 12 to 15 years of your life with them. It's a very broad topic, and I've been an advocate for responsible breeding for even longer than I've owned whippets. Let me know if you want a dedicated video on it soon. Even with the best breeding and the best upbringing, there are things about whippets you simply can't change. That brings me to lesson number 7. You can't let whippets off-leash just anywhere. And this applies to the vast majority of them. Years ago, we would go to the beach and let Daira run along the coast. So far, we could see her as a little dot in the horizon. Her mission was to sprint for as long as she could, like her life depended on it. Turn around at some point and come back to us. She was reliable and earned her off-leash time almost anywhere we took her. If I do this now with most of my whippets at an unfamiliar location which I haven't scanned for obstacles or prey animals, I will have like a million heart attacks. With the exception of Cooper, he won't go anywhere. That's mainly because their instinct to chase is wired so deeply that even the best recall can be useless. Let me visualize it for you. We go on hikes a few times a week. The trails are steep and rocky. One of the girls' main tasks is to be on the lookout for wildlife, waiting for their lucky day when they will finally catch a feral furry. Here we stopped by the river and they went crazy. It took me a while to realize that far away in the distance there is a squirrel minding its own business. These are sighthounds. They watch, they spot, and they act immediately and impulsively.
Brains. Brains.
Needless to say, they would have gone after it at the speed of light if they were loose, not even considering this unfamiliar terrain would have led to broken bones and at the very least torn skin. The risk of losing them is never worth the gamble of proving recall. And no, you can't train their prey drive away. What you can do is think a few steps ahead and decide which areas are safe enough for off-leash privilege. After all, they must be allowed to enjoy freedom. This is more of an advice rather than a lesson, but don't get a whippet on an impulse. 17 years ago, we fell in love with the little brindle and white creature after spending very little time with her. And we got a whippet of our own shortly after with little to no knowledge about the breed. The internet was limited when it came to relevant breed information, and we didn't have access to responsible, experienced, knowledgeable people to learn from. So we learned on the go and it worked out. It was meant to be. Nowadays, we cannot complain about lack of information or access to such. The internet is full of wonderful sources of information, from breed club websites and representatives to YouTube channels and social media accounts. Read and learn before you decide you want to dedicate the next 15 years of your life to one of these dogs. Because they aren't as easy as they seem, they're not for everybody, and not everybody is fit for them. I've covered this in detail and you can watch this video here to learn more. Let's now go through some of the more personal lessons I've learned. Will I ever own a different breed? Whippets are my heart dogs, my soul creatures, and my spirit animals. The bond I have with the breed in general is hard to explain because most of the reasons live in my heart more than in my head. A few years back, while I was in an experimenting phase of my life, I thought I could own a greyhound as well. There are many other breeds I adore, especially among the Sighthounds. If you followed long enough, you know that I've worked with Irish Wolfhounds, Scottish Deerhounds, and Greyhounds. As more time went by, I concluded that no other breed feels like home like Whippets do. I don't just love them, I belong with them. So mark my word, I will not own any other breed. That's also why I care so deeply and advocate for ethical breeding and responsible ownership. Because loving Whippets is not just about enjoying their company. It's also about protecting and preserving what makes them so special. And last but not least, after I've had anywhere from 1 to 8 Whippets, what is the ideal number I would like to have? After almost 17 years, where only 2 were spent with a single Whippet, I cannot imagine my life with just a couple. So of course, the true optimal number of Whippets I would like to have always will be just one more than I already have. But to be realistic, 8 Whippets at different ages would be my maximum, and also the maximum that fits my lifestyle, capabilities, and those of my household. I love the pack dynamics and their complicated relationships, how the adults bring some mature calmness to the whole four-legged family, how the youngsters make the oldies feel like puppies again and give them a job to teach them how to whip it. The size of a pack is obviously not for everybody, so please only consider a number that is manageable for you and can thrive under your care. Almost 17 years ago, I brought home my very first Whippet and I had no idea how much my life would change. Countless lessons, and yet I feel like I don't know enough. So I do my best to learn something new every day. But I can confidently say Whippets are not just dogs you share your life with. You're owned by them. And thank you so much for being a part of this journey. So, have a lovely weekend and a fantastic week afterwards, and I will see you very soon with a new video. Bye bye!